Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another recommendations video. We're in our comfies today. I'm wearing my Sassenach shirt and it's cold, so don't mind the bit of the bedraggled, but I wanted to film a video because I was feeling like it. I was feeling like talking to you guys and I had a couple videos prepped, so we're gonna do it. We're gonna go with the comfy zone. Just pretend, I'm sitting beside you on the couch giving you some reading choices, okay? So if you can't tell by the title of this video, this is going to be Wounded Hero Recs, okay? I haven't done one of these recommendations in quite a while. I have done like damaged heroes before and I've done a wounded heroes before. And what I mean by wounded heroes is the heroes have been damaged in some way, either mentally, they have PTSD, or they have trauma, either physically because they have a disability or a wound, or maybe a physical scar that also is hiding, damage inside, or emotionally. They just have, again, with like trauma. I guess mental and emotional are kind of together, but sometimes there's a difference between like they literally have PTSD from something, or they are like closed off emotionally inside because of reasons, okay? So I have both some historical, some dark romance, and even a paranormal romance to share with you. And each of these heroes is damaged in some way, and I'll tell you a little bit about how, and we'll dive in. But before I get started, I'm going to do a little plug. I know I don't do these often, but if you are interested in recommendations like this, I actually have an entire playlist that has almost 200 recommendation videos. I have playlists that are designated for historical recs as well as dark romance recs, but then I have one playlist that has almost 200 videos on it of different recommendations. Of course, you don't have to subscribe to the channel to get that, but that's just to let you know the kind of videos that I make. I also do weekly wrap-ups where I talk about every single book that I've read to give you a more in-depth look at what I'm reading. These are always in my weekly wrap-up playlist. And I read, the last couple of years, I've read 700 books or more. So if you'd like to be getting weekly recommendations for me, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit the like button to tell me you appreciate this, and hit the bell if you want to be notified when I upload. So there you go. That's enough of a plug. Let's get into these recommendations I have for you. And I'm actually going to start with the historical ones, and then we'll get a bit darker than that. So we're going to start off with My Darling Duke. And now I actually have a really cool copy of this one because I found it at a used bookstore and it was somebody's copy from Bay Crate. So they actually have this beautiful print that was put in there. So this is of the couple. This hero is actually in a chair part of the time. He has a spinal injury where he doesn't know if he will be able to father children. There was a pretty big incident, an accident that happened, and he's kind of been living his life locked away until our heroine, Miss Catherine Danvers, tells the world, tells London that she's engaged to this Duke. And when the Duke finds out she's done this, he's very intrigued by this woman who's using his name to kind of help launch her sister into society. And it's very interesting. So she's hoping that she can bluff this out just until her sister's married off, and then she will come clean or run away. And you know what? The Duke decides that he wants to go with it. So yeah, he might be a little bit angry. He's a little bit angry, but he's also very intrigued by her when he meets her. So it's very interesting. But yeah, this is a hero. He actually is in a chair. His physical disability does get in the way of sexy times sometimes, but also he gets the feels from her in ways that he hasn't from prostitutes or from ladies who are supposed to know what they're doing. And this was the first book by Stacy Reid I ever read, and I just found it so charming. So definitely recommend this. Then I have to talk about one of my favorite captains, Captain James Trevelyan from Dearest Rogue by Elizabeth Hoyt. We do have some step back action to share here. And this one actually has, this book has so many of my favorite tropes in it. But for a damaged hero, we are focusing on James Trevelyan. He definitely has some damage in a couple aspects because he was a soldier for His Majesty's Dragoons, and in a book earlier in the series, he actually gets injured helping our good guys, and he now has a limp and he has to use a cane. But he's not useless. He still has all of that knowledge he's gained by being a dragoon and being a captain of these soldiers. And so he gets hired by Mountbatten, or by Batten, not Mountbatten. Sorry, thinking about Prince Philip there. May he rest in peace. To be a bodyguard to Lady Phoebe Batten, who is a young woman who is plump and luscious and wonderful, and she's blind. She has slowly went blind over the past couple of years. And there is someone who has been trying to kidnap Phoebe to force her into marriage to like get back at her brother, and James gets assigned to take care of her. And so this is an age gap. It's bodyguard, plus size heroine. Both of them have disabilities, different ones, and I just love it. And the way that these two fall for each other, this ends up being a forced proximity. I mean, a lot of bodyguard books just are forced proximity just because that's the setup. You're with them all the time. But this one becomes that even more when James has to kind of remove her from the city to keep her safe, and he takes her to his home in Scotland. I believe, or is it Wales? Is it Wales or Scotland? I'm not sure, but I think it's Wales maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But I love it. I love it. I love it. I love this hero. He also is a bit tortured. There are some things when he has to go home that he has to confront some demons that are what caused him to leave home in the first place when he was a young man. I love this book so much. It was one of my favorites of last year. But it is also book number 8 in Maiden Lane. So there's a little bit of work to do to get to it if you want to read them in order. Then, you know, I gotta have an LK in here, and I have Love in the Afternoon. We do have some step back action with this one as well. Look at that beautiful purple. And our wounded hero in this one is Captain Christopher Felon. So, or Felon, whatever. He definitely is someone who has PTSD. He gets injured, and this is a letter writing story. Captain Christopher, he has been writing letters to Beatrix's friend, and this friend kind of gets sick of writing to him because he is always, you know, complaining about the tough things he's experiencing in the war. And so Beatrice kind of takes over writing him letters and kind of falls for him. And then he ends up becoming a war hero and comes home, and now he wants to marry the woman that he's been writing letters to. And that's not who he thinks it is. I love the Hathaways so dearly. This book was a wonderful way to end the series. The Hathaways were the second series that I read by Lisa Kleypas, because I did read the Ravenels first. Those are my first ones. But this book just meant so, like, much to me. I love the way that PTSD was dealt with in here, the nightmares he has, and the trouble that has followed him home. Yeah, this is a great one. Then I have Broken Wing. This is another one that was just so dear to me last year. This one, I call it a like historical fiction with a central romance. But I do call it historical fiction because it is more about one man's journey, but I promise the romance is more than 50% of the book. Like, it is a lot of the book. But I just always want to preface that there is a bit of soul searching that our hero does away from the heroine for a while. But this hero, his name is Gabriel, and he was raised in a brothel, and he's grown up there and been a prostitute for most of his life. And there comes a time where a young boy is brought there, and he takes it upon himself to be this boy's protector. And when this young boy's siblings come to rescue him, to basically buy him back from this brothel, the young boy won't leave without Gabriel. And so Gabriel gets hired to be his companion. And the brother and sister promise to set him up well when he leaves. And Gabriel has a lot of ingrained responses to generosity that need to be undone. And you know what? I'm going to throw this out there. I know this is random, but I just went to see the Redeeming Love movie. I used to talk about Redeeming Love quite a bit on my channel, but it's been a few years. That is a book that is very dear to my heart. And if you know the story of that, it's about a prostitute named Angel who marries a man who God has told him to love her. I know, it's a whole thing. But she just can't believe that the love is real and that she doesn't owe something for this love. And the reason I make the parallel is I find that Gabriel is a lot the same. When he's first starting to experience love for Sarah, he doesn't know what it is, and he feels like he owes her something because of the generosity. And he's like, I've had women and men that have paid me for my services, and do I owe her this? And she very patiently explains that, like, I mean, I do want to have sex with you. I do want to sleep with you, but not because you feel like you owe it to me. And that's just the tip of the iceberg in this book. Like I said, there is a soul-searching journey and demons that this man has to overcome. And I freaking love this book. This was a viewer recommendation, and I feel like this cover doesn't do it justice, because this is an epic romance, in my opinion. It just does have a lot to do with historical romance, but like historical fiction with the romance is still the point. There's still an HEA. There's still all of that. I like to warn people what they're getting into. And then the last historical one that I want to mention, I think that's the historical, sorry, I'm making sure that I touch on all the ones that I want to get to. We have The Taming of the Highlander by Elisa Braden. This is book 2 in her Midnight in Scotland series. I do recommend you read these in order. There's only one book before this one, but that one doesn't have a tortured hero, and we're talking about tortured heroes and wounded warriors for this one, okay? Wounded heroes. So for this, we have Broderick McPherson, and if you can't tell, he has an eye patch. He has just done a stint in prison, because the family's enemies have gotten him arrested, and he has to always be on guard, and he sees some horrible things in prison, and horrible things are done to him, and he's not there very long, but it's enough to have completely broken this man down, and he's almost feral when he gets out. All he wants is revenge, even if the cost is that he gets caught and has to be killed for this revenge. He doesn't have anything left to live for. And then we have Kate Huxley, who is visiting her brother John, who is the hero of the first book. He married a Scottish lass, but he's an Englishman, and she is an aspiring writer, and she's staying with her brother, and she runs into Broderick when he's trying to carry out some of his revenge. And to stop herself from having to testify against him, she says that she's his fiance / about to marry him. And then she follows through with that. And he definitely plans to keep it as a marriage of convenience only. And Kate is like, no. We're going to do something about that. But Broderick has a lot of trauma to overcome because he saw some horrible things happen in prison. And so I definitely would say he has some trauma and PTSD from that. And he doesn't quite know what to do with this Kate, who is just so like open and willing for all the experiences with him. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. All right, let's get into, let's talk about the paranormal first. I want to mention MaGrieve by Kresley Cole. So this is a tough one to recommend because it's like book 14 in a series. The book about MaGrieve's brother, Monroe, actually comes out in a couple days. It might already be out probably when you're seeing this video after 7 years is what they say. 5 years? 7 years would be Outlander. I think it's like 5 years, but I know it was a long time. But here we have MaGrieve, who was raped as a child by a succubus. He was raped from the time he was like 14 to, well, I think from like 13 to 15, he was raped by this succubus. And because of this succubus, his mother died, then causing his father to follow after. And so him and his twin, MaGrieve and Monroe, they haven't had, like, well, he has just been, I don't know, just living recklessly and not caring. You know, he hopes his brother will find his mate, but he doesn't expect to ever find a mate. And then the woman he gets mated with is the daughter of a man who's tortured him. I skipped a bit. He lived for many centuries with his brother, just living recklessly, living crazy, and in the, like, present time, he ends up getting kidnapped and taken to this place where they experiment on supernaturals. Sorry, did I say this? He's a Lycae, so he's a werewolf, basically. And he gets tortured by this horrible man. And then once he has escaped from there, he gets chased by a bunch of succubus who have been starved. And so they're really digging for some semen, really working for it. So that's terrifying to him. So he's just traumatized on all sides. Then he's free, trying to pull himself together. Him and his Lycae, they're really struggling with each other. It's a whole thing. And then he discovers his mate, who is the daughter of this man who tortured him. And not only that, she's part succubus. How is this supposed to be a happily ever after? Well, welcome to the world of Immortals After Dark. Kresley Cole does not know how to write a couple who it's going to be smooth sailing. And we wouldn't want to read it either. So I would definitely call MaGrieve a wounded hero, a tortured mind. And it's brilliant. It's bloody brilliant. I will tell you that. It's fantastic. Okay, so some dark romances we have to go through. Let's go with Relentless Hunter by Maggie Cole. This is, I know, we're really swinging for the fences. This is book 10 in the Mafia Wars. You cannot read it as a standalone. I'm sorry. But I still had to put Finn in this category. I just had to do it. This was one of my favorite books that I read in 2021. It actually only came out on the 1st of this year, but I was lucky enough to get to read an arc of it last year because Maggie Cole is too good to me. And Finn has been in prison for almost 20 years. He was horribly torn away from the love of his life when their love was just beginning. She was forced into a horrible situation. She's been tossed around, put in all these bad situations. She doesn't even want to live anymore. Okay, she doesn't. She doesn't want to live anymore. And then Finn gets out of prison and can't find her. And there's all these things that have been all stacked up. I mean, I can only share so much because, again, this is book 10. But this man has been through so much trauma and he's seen so much. And he's had one goal, and that's to get his woman back. And when he gets her back, will she even be, you know, what will be left of that love that they had? Like, will they still have that spark that drew them together so fiercely when they were so young? And I mean, they weren't completely innocent. I mean, he was still a member of the mafia back then, but they were so young and hopeful, and everything's just been ripped from them cruelly. And this book has one of the most satisfying happily ever afters that I've read in a long time. And Maggie Cole is a master of what she does. And this man, what he has to go through for his HEA. I mean, I don't think many heroes that we've read can, like, add up to this kind of agony. This, like, real brutal truth, you know? But I love it. I love my Finn. I love this series. The Mafia Wars is one of the best series that I've ever read, just as a collective from start to finish. The way that seeds are dropped, the way that information is revealed, it makes a binge through this series extremely satisfying. All the books are available on Audible now, and all of these are on KU. I highly recommend, if you love Mafia, that you give Maggie Cole a try. The first one is Ruthless Stranger, which is a one-night stand that turns into a happily ever after. But there you go. I plugged it. All right, we got another Mafia book. This is number 5 in the Belandi Crime Syndicate. This is Scarred Regrets. You could technically read this one as a standalone. You could do that. This series does pretty well where like it's kind of a contained story. Some of them overlap with each other, but for the most part, you could read these ones as a standalone. This one is about Skye and Irina. And they are very interesting. Oh my God, they're so interesting. But the things that make him a wounded hero is that Skye has been taking care of his sister when he's young and trying to keep her safe and untainted, to the point that he is willing to sell his body to keep his sister fed and clothed. And then someone sells drugs to his sister, and ruins everything, and his sister dies. His sister dies. And he ends up joining the Blondie crime syndicate and becoming one of their soldiers, and just kind of giving his soul to that. He's able to get out his anger, and no one touches him. No one touches him. And then he meets Irina, who, she is a very optimistic person. She wants to help children. She has a agency that's doing their best to help children. She's also the daughter, I think, of like the mayor. Her life has not been easy, even though she's privileged. Her life has not been easy. There are lots of dark things in her past. And when she becomes friends, she's friends with one of the wives of one of the other, like, I think of the capo. And Skye is the bodyguard of this woman. I think her name just flew out of my head. Is it April? I'm not sure. It just went out of my head. But Irina and this woman are friends. And so her and Skye have this great chemistry, but he doesn't plan to ever be with anyone again. He doesn't like to be touched. He doesn't want to have to be gentle or kind or work on a relationship. He just wants to survive, you know? And Irina really challenges that, really pushes him. And then when something traumatic happens to Irina and she no longer wants to live, like she doesn't want to survive, and Skye gets to show her what it's like to live for someone else, you know? He's willing to die for her, but she needs to be willing to live for him. And I love it. I love it. But this one is very dark. I'm sure you picked up a couple triggers that I just mentioned right there. There is rape and loss of a family member, and drug abuse, child abuse, depression, thoughts of suicide. Like, there's a lot in this one, but it's a very powerful story. And I've loved this series. There are a lot of batshit crazy men in this series, but Skye was actually the most, like, he was the most chill of all of them, even though he's the most fucked up of them all. So what's that tell you? Then real quickly, I want to mention Souls Unfractured by Tillie Cole. This is book 3 or 4 in the Hades Hangman series. I can't remember which one, but this one is about Flame and Maddie. And Flame, the way Skye is as well, has been severely, like, he was severely abused as a child. He was molested and raped, and so he doesn't like to be touched. He needs to cut himself to feel. He punishes himself with sex. He's very fucked up, okay? He's very fucked up. It's a thing. And our heroine, she was a part of a cult, as are all the ladies in this series pretty much, where she has been told that because she's beautiful, she's dirty, and she's a Magdalene, and she's only there for the pleasure of the prophets, and they must cleanse her by raping and assaulting her. And in a previous book, a bunch of these women are rescued from their situations, and Flame sees Maddie as his salvation. But he, like, to be with her and touch her is almost more than he can handle. So it's a bit intense. Just want to put that out there. But this series, man, it's one of the darker series I've read. It's an MC series. It can be a little bit much if you don't like biker speak, or you don't like the setups of a motorcycle romance, but it's one of the few series for me where like the darkness level and what was happening like matches that environment so well. And I just love how the bikers are like fearless for trying to rescue these women, and that really like speaks to me. So there you go. And then the last two that I want to talk about is the what was this series supposed to be called? I totally forgot. I can't remember what it was called. Oh, the captive, hold on. Criminals and Captives. So there is Prisoner by Annika Martin and Skye Warren, and there is Hostage. And I figured I'd talk about these together because both of the men in these books have the same trauma. They were child sex slaves. They were used by this circle of men, these rich men in all these different high-powered positions, raped these boys repeatedly. And there was 7 of them. And they were able to escape at a certain point in their life. And now they are old enough and they have the connections enough to get revenge on these men. And so that goes awry for them in different ways. In this book, one of the men has ended up in prison, and he actually uses a writing program and the teacher who teaches it to get a message to the outside and is able to escape prison. So this is a prison break novel. And then there's Hostage, where we have a young woman who is in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the hero in this one, Stone, his name is Stone, he takes this girl hostage and he's planning to kill her because she's seen him and she could ruin his plan. But he ends up trusting her not to turn him in, and he keeps an eye on her. And through him keeping an eye on her, they actually fall in love. And I know that sounds fucked up, but surprisingly, this book was more wholesome than I was expecting. And they have a slow burn love with each other. Like, him keeping an eye on her takes place over a few years, and I just really loved how their romance played out. But definitely the guys have some trauma from what they've been through, and one of them manifests it in anger, and one of them manifests it in determination, and these were just very moving books to me. I wish these two were still writing these books. This currently, as it stands, this is just a duet. The story as a whole is wrapped up, so it's not like anything is left hanging. But it also is pretty clear that like there was 7 men, there was 7 boys who were part of this, and we only got to 2 of their stories. So I'm pretty sure that this writing duet just wasn't able to sustain it, which is understandable. Like, it's difficult to write a book with someone. But anyway, okay, I'll stop rambling. So those are the books I have to recommend with wounded and damaged heroes. Let me know some of your favorites. Again, I have made this video a couple times before. So yeah, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.